What's going on, guys? John Kelly here, and today we're talking about gear that I had to spend a little bit of extra money on, but I have no regrets in doing it. See, as us YouTubers, a lot of times we like to do budget gear lists to help you get started in backpacking or find really good gear that maybe doesn't cost as much. But if we're gonna be real, we know that as we continue in our backpacking journey, we are constantly wanting to upgrade our gear and try new things. There's a saying that goes around in the backpacking world of buy once, cry once. In other words, go ahead and fork out the money to get the piece of gear that's gonna last you a long time and is gonna give you the best performance. And some of that gear is what I'm talking about today. So without further ado, let's get on with the list. The first piece of gear that I want to talk about is usually hanging up behind me, but it's not today because we're going to talk about it, and that is my Enlightened Equipment 20-degree Revelation quilt. Back in 2008, I was putting together gear so that I could do a through hike of the Sheltowee Trace National Recreation Trail. And I had a sleeping bag that I was able to use. It was a Marmot sleeping bag. It probably weighed in about 2.5 to 3 pounds, which in my brain at the time was, that's such a great weight, but it was a 40-degree sleeping bag. So a 40-degree sleeping bag in some weather that might get down below that. Not only that, it was a 40-degree survival rating. It wasn't a 40-degree comfort rating. And I realized really quick that I was probably gonna have to get a different sleeping bag. And that's when I started watching a lot of videos by people like Darwin, who was talking about this Revelation quilt by Enlightened Equipment. I had no idea what a quilt was. All I ever knew was sleeping bags. And so I started watching these videos from all these different people talking about these quilts. So I got online and found a website called Massdrop. And at the time, they were partnering with Enlightened Equipment to put out their own version of the Revelation 20-degree quilt. And I remember seeing the price of it and thinking to myself, there's no way I can afford this. And the more I thought about it, the more I was just thinking to myself, you know what? I can't afford not to do it. So I bit the bullet and I bought this quilt. It came in at around $220. And at that time, $220 was a lot of money for me. My Marmot sleeping bag cost me all of about $75. And it got down to about the size of a ball cap, and I thought that is the perfect sleeping bag for what I need. But when I put these up next to each other, this one was so much lighter than the Marmot sleeping bag. At only 23 ounces and about 660 grams, this sleeping bag was ultra light. It compacted down really nicely and it kept me super warm on some really chilly nights on the trail, and I still use this sleeping bag on most of my trips. I actually just had this out last night out at the Red River Gorge. This thing has done such a good job. It's got Lofttech 800 fill down in it. There is a DWR coating to the outside of the bag, but after 3 years, I don't know if that's still real effective at this point. But what I can say is this bag, for the money I spent on it, I don't regret it. Once I learned how to dial this bag in and how to use it best, I have slept with it in tents, I've slept with it in hammocks, I've even slept out and cowboy camped with it one time, and it has been fantastic. This has been one of the purchases that I made years ago that I don't regret and I'd probably do again. Up next is another purchase that I made about the same time as I made that purchase of the sleeping bag, and that is my ULA Ohm 2.0 sleeping bag. Just about a year and a half ago, I made a video talking about how this is my favorite backpack, and it still may be. I forked out $265 to buy this backpack, which again, at the time, between the backpack and my sleeping bag, I was spending about $500, and I couldn't wrap my head around 2 backpacking items being that expensive. This backpack has been a beast for me. I've taken it winter backpacking, I've backpacked with it in the summer, I've done all of the Sheltowee Trace. It's been in snow, it's been in rain, it's been in insane sunlight, it's been dragged across logs and dirt and sand, and it has come out and it is still in fantastic shape. When I bought this backpack, it wasn't highly publicized that you could purchase these with X-Pack, but I was able to get my hands on an X-Pack version of this and have it custom made to my specifications. And this bag has been amazing over the years. The pack itself weighs in at right around 32 ounces, about a little over 900 grams, but for the weight and the use and the rigid suspension, I do love the suspension on this thing. It does a great job allowing you to shift the weight from your shoulders to your hips and back with the load lifters that are on it. This pocket is amazing. It is just, I can put my whole arm down inside of this pocket. I actually did a review on the backpack, and you can check that out right up here, I believe. So click on that link if you want to find out more about the Ohm 2.0. I do love the backpack, and I've never, ever regretted making this purchase. A few years ago, I made a friend named Ben McMillan. And Ben had been talking about making this fancy camera bag that you could take out into the woods with you, and he was telling me about it. He was making it out of Dyneema. I was just really getting into YouTube at that point and wanted to protect my DSLR when I was out hiking. And so we struck up a conversation. We started talking. Well, that Ben McMillan ended up creating a company that many of you already know about and I've talked about on this channel, and that's Hilltop Packs. And the next purchase that I personally made that I have no regrets about was buying this food bag. This is the small bear bag. Believe it or not, this is the small one from Hilltop Packs. This thing weighs in at right around 1.9 ounces, I believe. I'll put the ounces and the grams down below. This is made with a thicker Dyneema fabric that's really rigid, which is great when you're loading this thing up with food and you're gonna hang it at night. One of the reasons I like these bags, I know a lot of people are like, why do you want a bag that has your name on it or a logo on it? If you've ever been to heavily trafficked backpacking areas, like Grayson Highlands is a great example. They have bear boxes where they want you to keep your food. And so everybody has to put their food in there at night. And when you open that thing up and take a look inside, you see this sea of light blue and light green Dyneema food bags that everybody has put in there. They all look exactly the same. But when I put my bag in there, I know for a fact it's mine. I don't have to worry about trying to hunt through all of them, maybe opening them up and looking to see what food is inside to know which one is actually mine. The folks down at Hilltop Packs make super high quality gear. I paid $53 for this bag, and when Ben saw that I bought this, he went in and threw in this monster bag. Now this guy right here, I would say this bag is fantastic for like a full week-long trip. But if you're just doing an overnight or you're gonna do like a weekend 2-day trip, this food bag is perfect for that. I spent $53 on this thing, and I know that sounds like a lot of money, but for me, having a bag that I know is gonna hold together, that's gonna be waterproof if it rains while I've got my food in it, and also a bag that I know this is my bag. When I go into a bear box, I don't have to worry about being confused as to whose bear bag is whose. I'll always know that this is mine. The craftsmanship, supporting a more cottage company, those kinds of things are important to me, and knowing that I'm able to help them out while also getting high quality gear, I'm willing to spend the extra money for that. The next piece of gear we're going to talk about is one that's a little bit on the controversial side. It's one that the hardcore thru hiker is just absolutely going to say is stupid. Don't spend your money on it. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is some of the best money I've ever spent in my life. And that's on my camp chair. Now, I believe that backpacking has two parts to it. There's hiking and there's camping. And you have to decide when you're backpacking which one is going to be most important. Is it the hiking or is it the camping? I would say I'm about 60-40 camping versus hiking, depending on the trail that I'm on. Now, if there's a trail with tons of waterfalls and peaks and valleys and awesome viewpoints and things like that, that hike is probably going to take precedence over camping in that occasion. But most of the time, camping is more of a 60-40 thing for me. And so being comfortable at camp is really, really important. And a camp chair for me is vital to that. It doesn't matter what trip I'm going on nowadays, this chair will always come with me. And this one in particular, I call the Chairpoint 5. This chair is way more expensive than it should have been. I bought a Chair Zero and it broke on me. That was $110. And it broke, snapped on me, and instead of buying another Chair Zero, I went ahead and bought the Chair 1 by Helinox, which at the time they had a clearance version of it. It was a green chair, obviously nobody was buying it, so they had it on sale for right around $50 to $60, I believe. So I picked it up and I used the frame of the Chair 1 with the body or the fabric from the Chair Zero. So I have a chair that's just a shade over £1.50 pounds with the stuff sack. Probably end up spending like 160 bucks or 170 bucks on the chair, but I love the chair. And even when I finish losing weight, which I don't know if you noticed, but these shirts are just like super hangy on me. They're like super big. I keep forgetting that I've lost weight, and so I keep buying XXL shirts, and it's like I'm wearing a tent as a shirt. But even when I lose all of my weight, I'm probably still gonna use this chair. It sits a little higher off of the ground, which for my knees is fantastic, trying to get up out of the chair. It also is just more rigid. The Chair Zero, when you sit in it, it'll always move just a little bit. This thing doesn't move. This thing is solid as a rock. So for me, I spent way too much money to make this chair happen because of breaking my Chair Zero, but I don't regret it because the final product is a piece of gear that goes with me on every single trip, and I rely on it whenever I go out into the backcountry. And the final piece of gear that I want to talk about is one that costs more than anything else in this list. And that's this thing right here. This is my hammock gear Dyneema tarp with doors. The standard sized tarp. It's a 12-foot tarp with doors on it. It weighs in at right around 7.9 ounces. I'll put the ounces in the grams below so that you can see that. What I love about this tarp is what it's done for my base weight. This tarp weighing in at only 7.9 ounces. Just a shade under 8 ounces, then another ounce for the snakeskin, weighs more than £1 pound less than my original Winter Dream tarp that I had from UGQ. Now that tarp is fantastic too, and it's not cheap by any means either, but the weight difference between that tarp and this one is insane. In the summertime, if I know I'm gonna be backpacking and there's gonna be rain, I'm bringing this tarp. Heck, even if there's not gonna be rain, I'm still bringing this tarp because it's lighter than my hanger tarp, which is just a cat cut tarp. This thing is so light, but it's also so easy to use, so easy to set up. The fact that I can just roll the tarp up like this and it kind of keeps its shape is fantastic. I spent $389 on this tarp. Like I said, this was not a cheap purchase. This was definitely something I spent a lot of money on. But I will tell you that since I got it back in April, it's gone on every trip, every backpacking overnighter. It went with me to Pictured Rocks. This tarp is fantastic, and the fact that I can save over £1 pound of weight using this tarp instead of my heavier Winter Dream tarp is fantastic. Saving £1 pound off of your base weight is massive. As a matter of fact, all of the gear minus the chair has given me weight savings in my pack. Now, as many of you know, I'm a lightweight backpacker. I don't claim to be ultra light, but I like having ultralight items that allow me to have things like a chair when I go out in the backcountry. Even though Kyle hates hiking, hates these things, I love them, and being able to lower my weight in other areas makes it possible for me to have my luxury items when I go out on the trail. So I don't regret spending almost $400 on this tarp because I will get the use out of it, and it will make it so much nicer for me when I go backpacking to not have so much weight in my pack. So what about you? What are some items that you guys take with you out on the trail that you spent a ton of money on, but you don't regret it? What's the gear that you really forked out the cash for, but there's no buyer's remorse at all? Leave those in the comments below. I would love to know what you guys think. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you find out anytime one of these videos drops. And I will catch you on the next go-round.